Alright, so Personal Financial Management, FIN2602, that's the course that we're going to be covering over the next few weeks. The first bit that I'd like to look at is obviously from Tuesday, you're familiar with Creativa Solutions. Right, you're obviously enrolled for the weekly classes. So we've got live interactive classes. There's the support material which you've got. So you've got the material for the entire semester. We will go through some questions and examples as we go. There's a lot of discussion that we'll have in terms of application. So it's one thing covering the theory, it's another thing trying to apply it. Right, from a test point of view, they do test calculations. So we spoke about the financial calculator on Tuesday for FIN 2601. You're going to need it for 2602 as well. Right, so you can use the same financial calculator for both modules. It's just a skill that you need to do certain calculations, okay, from a time value of money point of view. Right, we will cover past papers. I've got a bit of a question bank that I can forward to you. I will need the newer, obviously, past papers as and when they become available. We can do those in class together. Right, in terms of support, if you do need my assistance, we can do it either telephonically, Skype or WhatsApp, or you can email me questions and I'll respond that way as well. Okay, right, so to start off, you've got the study guide, so UNISA would have sent you that book, correct? Okay, and that gives you additional, let's say, questions, but short questions covering each of the different chapters. All right, so it is a good module in terms of UNISA and how they manage it. And then you've obviously got the textbook, which is the Personal Financial Management, 3rd edition by Nico Swart. Okay, there are assignments that we need to do during the semester. We'll complete those before the due dates in order to get access to the exam. Right, so the first bit I want to start off with is the importance. Right, so PFM, Personal Financial Management. Okay, that's the focus with this course. So your other finance courses were financial management, okay, but company focus. Right, this is financial management, but personal, so individual. Okay, so you and I, we would then implement some of these concepts. Okay, personal financial management. Right, what is it? Well, it's a field of study affecting all. Right, why do you say, or why do they mention this is a field that affects everyone? Correct. Yes, okay, so when looking at personal financial management, everyone needs to manage their own finances. As much as we work for companies and we need to be responsible for budgets and so on, from a company point of view, which is a large corporate, okay, or small business, it doesn't matter, you're still going to have to manage finance. Okay, so personal versus business, same things apply. Okay, certain rules still apply. Right, here we're looking more at this, financial independence. Okay, so what does that mean? What's your view? When someone says they're financially independent, what does that mean?
Financially secure, but don't have to rely on other people to buy things.
Okay, good. So in terms of the textbook, in terms of the research that Mr. Nico Swart has done, he's identified statistics in terms of 1 in 10. Right, so 1 in 10 people can retire financially independent. Okay, so that's about 10%. So 10% of a group of individuals would be able to retire independently. That's quite worrying in terms of there's such a small amount of people, but so few can actually retire comfortably, okay, or independently. Right, financial independence, as you said, is obviously not relying on someone, okay, to pay for certain expenses. Right, so you're able to look after yourself, clothe yourself, house yourself, feed yourself, etc. Okay, that's independence. Right, so why do we have a lack of financial independence? Why do you think so few people can retire?
They're living not good.
Possibly good.
They're not living the same.
All right, good. So not saving. Okay, that's one possibility. Okay, living too long. That's another possibility. And something else that they've considered is this: a lack of knowledge or information. Right. So, do you agree? Not everyone knows what a unit trust is. Okay, not everyone knows what a fixed deposit is. Not everyone knows what a bank loan is. Right, some people have a better understanding of those assets and liabilities than others. Okay, so you would know how to identify an asset compared to liability. Right, you know assets are better than liabilities. Right, so some people don't achieve financial independence not because they don't know, okay, how to, let's say, budget, but they're spending money on the wrong things perhaps. Okay, so instead of buying assets, they're spending too much on expenses. And we know expenses aren't going to increase wealth and help grow financial independence over a long period of time or short period. Okay, so what must we do as individuals? We need to take responsibility. Right, it starts with the individual. Okay, personal financial management. Okay, so the individual, okay, is key in terms of their future. Right, so your future is determined by your decisions, okay, and your responsibilities. Right, so what are you responsible for and how do you act accordingly? Okay. Then there's a note about the difference between employee, entrepreneur, and business person. Okay, this we'll see later on in a separate chapter. Okay, they talk about career planning and how that will affect personal finance. Okay, so what would you want to be if you had to choose? Let's say you had a choice to be an employee, an entrepreneur, or a business person.
I think maybe like an employee, because then it's not risky being an entrepreneur business person.
Okay, so for you, you would go with
The employee, like
employee.
and stuff like that.
Okay, great. So that's fine. Right, everyone has a preference. Okay, so everyone has a specific goal in mind. Okay, so your goal is security, right? And being an employee perhaps might have more security than being an entrepreneur, perhaps. Okay, or a business person. Okay, so most people don't know what to do when they get a huge amount of capital. Okay, so this week, was it this week? No, last week I think it was. Okay, there was a person in Limpopo that won,
But also 87, I think it was 87 million.
correct, 87.3 I think it was, million rand. Okay, from a 20 rand lotto ticket that was bought in Limpopo. Okay, and they won the Powerball jackpot. Right, the chances of winning the lotto are so slim. Okay, but recently someone actually won this massive jackpot. Okay, so they were talking about it on the radio yesterday, and they've identified the individual now. Okay, I think it was a guy from Limpopo, bought his ticket from I think it was a petrol station somewhere in Limpopo. Okay, and they now have 87.3 million rand. Okay, so what do you do when such a lot of money appears from nowhere? Most people don't know what to do.
I'll do the same.
Okay, so if we're looking at personal financial management, there are stories in the past, you might have heard some of them, okay, where people win big jackpots, okay, and over a short period of time, they spend it all, they lose it all, and they basically end up where they were before they won the lotto, okay, or before they won the jackpot, if they're gambling, right, at a casino. Right, so when looking at financial management, okay, personal financial management, the key is this: developing the ability, okay, and the skill of analyzing, okay, different situations. Okay, so how do you deal with money? Okay, if you have a lot or if you have little, what's your view on capital? Okay, what's your view on finance? Okay, are you more conservative? Are you more aggressive? Okay, do you take risks? Don't you take risks? Right, that's something that you need to consider, and the individual will be able to answer those questions. Okay, so developing those abilities are key. Right, so if you won 87.3 million, what would you do with it?
Me personally, I was maybe buy a house with a car and save the rest.
Okay, good. So see, you've got that knowledge in terms of saving, right? Most people probably would spend a large portion of it. Okay, hopefully they would save or invest some of it. Okay, but it all depends on your education, right? So you know saving is important for retirement, okay, or you know saving is important to grow wealth, right? So if we don't do that, we're not going to achieve a specific goal. Right. Some people might say, well, I've got 87.3 million, right? if I live for 87 years, that's 1 million rand a year. Okay, would you be able to live comfortably with 1 million rand a year? Probably. Right, so maybe you could just spend 1 million rand a year for the next 87 years. Right, and just travel and see the world. Okay, so everyone has a different perspective on money, okay, and what we do with it. Right, maybe you would invest all of it and just live off the proceeds, the interest. Correct. Okay, so there's a lot of different strategies that go into managing finance. What's important here from a financial management point of view in terms of this particular module, right? FIN2602 is trying to focus on real life examples. Okay, so you'll see a few in the textbook, okay? You'll see a few in the study guide, right? They try to make this as practical as possible, okay? Because this is something that affects everyone, personal finance, okay? So when we're looking at solving problems, what do we need to solve problems? How do we solve problems? Okay, information. Right, if we've got information, we can solve a problem. Right, so if you've got a situation where you don't know what to do, what do? You try seek as much information as possible, because with more information, that gives you a better base to make a decision. Right, now you can say, well, okay, I now have enough facts and data and information to say, well, this is what I'm going to do. Okay, this is how I can solve the problem. Right. So when we're looking at real life, do things always go according to plan? No. Do we always have all the info? No. Right. So sometimes you have a lot of information. Sometimes you have very little. Okay. In real life situations, it's very difficult to predict what's going to happen in the future. No one knows what's going to happen. Tomorrow can be warm, tomorrow can snow, tomorrow can rain and we can have a hailstorm. We don't know really what's going to happen in the future. But if we've got more information, so for example, if you had to ask a meteorologist, okay, they would be able to tell you if it's going to be hot or cold tomorrow, if it's going to rain or not tomorrow. Okay, because for them, they've got a specific skill set in that area. Okay, they know how to read, let's say, humidity, right, and cloud formations and so on, right. And with that information, they can make a better prediction of what's going to happen in the future, right. So in real life, we never ever know what's going to happen, right. So we should always plan for the worst and hope for the best. Okay, and that involves action. All right, so being proactive versus being reactive. Okay, reactive. Okay, there's two ways of approaching life. You can either be proactive or you can be reactive, right? And important here, we're focusing on the finance. Same thing applies, okay? If you're dealing with money, you're either proactive or reactive. Okay, you either do things as and when they arise, or you're actively doing things ahead of time. Okay, so simple example could be maybe insurance. How does insurance help an individual? Correct. Okay, it covers you in case of loss. Is that being proactive or reactive? Correct. Okay, because you haven't had loss occurring yet. Right, the car hasn't been in an accident. Okay, you haven't become disabled. Okay, and you haven't been affected by, let's say, health. Okay, in terms of suffering from certain natural diseases and so on. Okay, you can take out life cover, you can take out disability cover, you can take out insurance. Okay, so that's proactive. Reactive is, well, when I'm in an accident, now I'm going to do something. So it's too late once you're in an accident. You need to plan ahead. Okay, the same thing happens with finance. Right, it's too late when you're, let's say, 50, 60, 70. Okay, when you're wanting to retire then, but now you're saying, well, I should have saved 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. Okay, it's too late. Right, so time is a very important factor when looking at financial problems and issues. Right, people always think that problems will solve themselves. Okay, people solve problems. Okay, so people need to come up with solutions. People need to be proactive. Okay, and then we spoke about knowledge. With more information, That's very, very powerful. Okay, it's always important to try improve your knowledge and information relating to life topics. Okay, everything, not only finance but other as well. Okay, so this particular module is looking at a foundational approach, okay, when dealing with money. Okay, so basic principles that relate to finance that individuals have to adhere by. Okay, so what are we trying to do? We're trying to achieve this competence. Okay, so let's talk about driving. Before you actually go and drive the vehicle on the road, what do you need to do?
Learn to drive.
Correct, you need to,
Practice.
you need to write the learner's test, right? The rules of the road. You need to know what the rules of the road are. You need to know what certain signs mean, okay? And that's a test that you write before you even get into the vehicle to start driving and practicing that. Okay, so with applied competence, we're looking at applying what we know in terms of practical solutions, okay, for real-world scenarios, okay, or problems. And then we can also look at certain principles in terms of foundations, okay, that we can consider. So some people believe in certain catchphrases or mottos, right? So when you were growing up, what phrases were used in the household in terms of money?
Well, that's a saving amount.
Okay, so
Something in the bank contribution.
all right, good. So that's the type of background you come from in terms of saving. So your family in general, okay, has a culture of saving, right? Other families could be very different. Okay, they could be more big spenders, right? Everyone comes from a different point of view in terms of experience, right? So when looking at foundational in terms of understanding, okay, if we're looking at personal finance, you need to understand why people do certain things. So why do people save? Why do people spend? Okay, it's normally because of certain beliefs or behaviors that they have in terms of their experience in the past. Okay, so growing up, that's the type of lifestyle, that's the type of culture that was in the family. And that's why they formulate a specific type of mindset. Okay, and then you've got reflective. Right, and reflective is when you sit and you actually think about what has happened. So practical would be the action, what you're actually doing. The foundation would be the principles. Okay, so how do you do certain things? Do you know what type of person you are when it comes to managing money? Okay, are you more aggressive? Are you more conservative? It all depends. And then reflexive, okay, is the connecting in terms of understanding to performance. So there's the reflection. Okay, reflection, okay, sitting and actually thinking about what has happened, right? So do I know what type of relationship I have with money? Okay, what's the mindset around wealth? What's the mindset about money? Right, some people, as I said earlier, who win massive amounts in terms of winnings, okay, jackpots from lotteries or other, and all of that gets spent in a few years and they end up broke again, right? How could you ever picture someone being broke after having won 87 million? Right, and that's why the National Lottery actually offer not counseling, that's the right word. Okay, they actually offer counseling for people who win massive amounts of money. Right, so if you had to win, so that individual that won 87 million, okay, has access to counseling. Right, purely because they're probably never seen, or I mean, most people probably will never ever see 87 million, right, in their lifetime. Some people will, some people won't. It all depends. Okay, so that individual, yes or not, well, let's say the day before the result, that individual was, let's say, an average middle class type of individual. Right, the day after the lottery, he became an instant millionaire. Right, so how do you change that mindset? It's with education, with support. Right, so if they don't offer counseling, that individual's not going to know what to do with such a lot of cash.
Also, I've heard some benefits in America that you can either take it some times less or they pay in installments.
Yes, okay. I think they do the same thing in South Africa. I'm not too sure. But in most cases, right, lotteries would prefer paying out over a period of time rather than paying out one lump sum, because it's a huge amount of cash or capital that they need to pay off, obviously as a once-off payment, right? So for them, it's also in their best interest to pay off the winnings, right, over a period of time.
They're also getting interest on that, so they also
Definitely.
their finances as well.
Sure, and cash flow, yeah. Right, good.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the scope. Those are some of the topics we'll cover in terms of the understanding. Right, this you've seen before in other modules. Right, try pre-read if you can. You did mention how thick the textbook is, and I want to make a note about, I want to tell you something in terms of past papers. The past paper questions that do come up are sometimes very, very specific. Okay, so even when looking at assignment questions, you are going to have to refer to the textbook in terms of wording, exact wording. Whether it's fair or unfair, it's just something that they've taken into consideration when setting your questions. Right, they've literally looked at the textbook in detail in terms of wording. Right, and they spin it around in terms of negatives or changing something negative to positive and asking questions like that. Okay, so true or false maybe. Okay, and you need to be specific in terms of the textbook. Right, so I would suggest maybe over the next few weeks before your exam, if you maybe take a chapter a week or a chapter every 2 days or so, right, and try to do a bit of reading, right, just because it can help in terms of retention, right, so you would be able to maybe remember, I remember reading something about credit, okay, in terms of the C's, the 5 C's or the 4 C's that are necessary when making an application. Okay, there's a lot of different, let's say, processes. Okay, I'm obviously trying to focus on what I've seen that's important, okay, from a test point of view, and that's why we've got these notes.
And also, I think more than 14 chapters in the hour. My page 2 is
Yes.
I'm in reporting weeks, so some weeks you have to do 2 or something.
We don't. Well,
I don't think
UNISA has given you this textbook, okay? And if you look at chapters, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right, healthcare, protection planning, retirement, immigration, okay, there's 18 chapters in total. Yeah, we do cover all 18 chapters. Some chapters are more important than others. So, for example, chapter 18, immigration, okay, I've never ever seen any questions, right, come out about immigration, all right, so leaving the country. All right, I've seen a lot of questions look at retirement planning, that's chapter 17. Okay, I've seen a lot of questions look at investment planning, that's chapter 11. Right, so certain chapters are more important than others. Right, but I'll mention which are more important than others as we go. Okay, same thing with credit. Credit comes up quite a bit. Okay. Pardon?
Once you will come up in exams.
Which ones? What?
Credit and that.
Of course, yeah. Certain sections are tested more so than others. Yeah, so I can tell you now that the last chapter, immigration planning, it isn't a very popular chapter. I mean, UNISA's got 18 chapters that they could potentially test. Okay, so for them, the other 17 chapters are more important, inverted commas, okay, than chapter 18 in terms of immigration. Okay, not to say immigration isn't important from a financial planning point of view, it is. Again, we'll cover the theory relating to immigration, but it's not a key focal point from an exam point of view. Okay, all right, so let's start with study unit 1. Okay, study unit 1, personal financial planning. This particular chapter is look at the overview. Okay, so we chatted briefly about what personal finance is. Here we're going to be looking at some factors. Okay, so what areas does that particular topic cover? So when you say personal finance, what does that actually refer to? What factors do we need to consider? What areas do we need to consider? All right. We'll also look at budgeting. Okay, there'll be a note about budgeting. Okay, we know budgeting is key from a company point of view. Companies need to budget. So do individuals. Right. Time value of money, something to consider, and then the importance of credit planning. Okay, those are the learning outcomes from study unit 1. Right, so let's start off with this note. I want you to consider this family. Okay, so have a look. Husband and wife, 2 kids, house, cars, garden, nice weather in the background. What money matters would this family have? I want you to try to think of as many as you can. Okay, so money matters, mortgage, loans, what is that? But what is it? Is it debt? It is. Okay, it's credits. Debt and credits. Okay,
Finance agreements with the cars.
good. So
And then also the clothing accounts if they have.
clothing accounts, car, yeah, good. What else? What other money matters would they have?
In the garden cleaning, they want to.
Okay, maintenance. Yeah, it's a costly exercise to keep a house in tip-top condition, right?
You got to ask for all the things I have.
Money matters, yes. Good. What else? How old do you think those kids are?
Schooling.
Yes.
Preschool.
Possibly. Preschool, primary school. Right, that's a money matter to consider. Okay, what else? Good. Okay, so they should be hopefully planning for retirement. Great, that's a money matter. What else? What happens if one of these individuals, correct, had to pass? Yeah, life insurance perhaps. Okay, the husband or the wife, okay, could be the primary breadwinner in the company. So what happens if you remove those two individuals? What happens to those two kids? Hopefully, and that's why life cover is something that provides for that risk. Okay, good. Right, so you've identified quite a few of the money matters. So now, I want you to try to think about time. Okay, short term, medium term, and long term. What do you think this family's short term, medium term, and long term goals would be? Okay, so what does that mean? What does that entail? When you say financial security for the rest of their lives as a long-term goal, what must they do? What must they achieve? What does that mean for this family?
Save for the future, their retirement planning and stuff, and save up. Short-term means mostly like.
Okay, good. So you said long-term was saving,
Save for the future,
which is like a pension, maybe a retirement fund. Okay.
Yeah.
Then you mentioned short term. So now tell me about short term. What short term goal could they have?
Satisfy all their current debts, paying them off.
Good. Paying off current debt. That's important.
Clothing accounts, watching lines and all that.
Good. All right. And what would you say a medium term goal would be for this family?
That's the mortgage.
That would be more long term, I would say. Mortgage. Yeah. I mean, a mortgage, you get 20, 25, 30-year mortgages. All right. So not to say you can't pay off your property over a shorter period of time. Okay. But generally, if we're talking about a mortgage, that would be more a long-term goal in terms of owning that asset. Okay. Medium term. Okay. So maybe just to put some time frame towards this. Okay. So yeah, short term would be anything between maybe 0 months, okay, to around 24 months. Okay, that could be considered short term. So this year and next year. Right, that's pretty short term. Medium term would be looking at something maybe 2 to 5 years. Okay, which is more medium term. And then long term could be anything greater than 5 years. Right, that's longer term. Right, so 5 years or longer. That would be a long term goal. Okay, so in the interim, over a few months, maybe leading up to 2 years, what's your short term goal? And then what's your medium term? So having differentiated between short term, medium term, and long term in terms of time, what would you say some of their medium term goals would be? What would a medium term goal for this family be in, let's say, 2 to 5 years?
Schooling and that.
Correct, yeah.
And some of to the long term. Those kids look like they'll need another 18 years. One on the left is definitely 18 years.
Possibly?
Another 18, 12, sorry.
All right, possibly. Good. So you're correct. So that child is probably more, let's say, in terms of time, there's a greater time attached to that child in terms of schooling. Okay, this child is probably already going to school. Okay, so for this child, medium-term goal might be high school. Okay, for this child, medium-term goal might be primary school. Yeah. All right, good. So that's be more medium term. Medium term within 2 to 5 years. Okay. What are some of your goals? What is a short-term goal of yours?
I want to get a job and finish this degree in the next 24 months.
Okay, so that's short-term. Okay. Medium term?
Get a house, get a car, responsibility, get a family and stuff like that.
All right. And then long term?
That's saving money for the future, I would say.
All right. Okay,
I
so
think maybe also in the person of maybe the same. To like have a house where families I need to save.
correct. Okay, good. All right, nice. All right, so when looking at training, okay, so this is looking at management from an education point of view. So the textbook actually does the same thing in terms of trying to explain something very important from a point of view of this training and education. So what does training do for a country? Right, so if I'm looking at management training, who does that affect? The employees, right? Because managers are working for the business. Right, so employees are going to be trained. Okay, management training. If you're training employees to become managers, does that help your company?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
In-house training.
Correct. You're trying to make your, let's say, employees more productive. Okay, you're giving them skills. Right, so let's say people do take up the opportunity in terms of training and they do become managers. Right. What can a business now do? They can operate more effectively. Do you agree? Okay, so successful managers help with operations. Right, the more successful the manager, the more successful the business. Okay, so there's the next step. Successful managers create successful businesses because people know how to use those limited resources. Okay, and if businesses are doing well, the country is going to do well. Right, and if the country does well, everyone benefits. Okay, and that's the process. So what's the root cause of success in terms of making a country successful? It all starts with what? Training. Okay, education. Right, knowledge, skills. Right, and that's why Nelson Mandela has been quoted in the past having said, education is the most powerful weapon in the world. Okay, you can change the world with education. Right, education is very, very powerful because you're giving someone the ability to think and to do certain things. Okay, so for example, think about the less fortunate. Okay, you can give them handouts for the rest of their lives. That's not going to change the way they view life and the way they, let's say, look after themselves. Okay, so do you give someone a handout in terms of a donation, okay, for the less fortunate? Yes, okay, that could be great in terms of helping society, but if you really wanted to help that person, right, you should rather give them the knowledge and information to change their life. So give them training to do something, and that might help them get a job. Okay, so instead of giving them a donation, okay, a handout, they're actually going to be giving themselves something in terms of work, in terms of, let's say, opportunities, and that's a better, let's say, gift you could give someone rather than just giving them a donation. Right, so there's always more, okay, to this, okay, in terms of where does it come from? Right, so wealthy countries, people living in prosperity, obviously stem from training. And that's why countries, the successful countries in the world, okay, the most successful countries in the world generally have the best educational systems. Okay, where education is either free, okay, or subsidized, but government assists with providing education for all, right? And that increases the country's well-being purely because you have more educated individuals, right? So if we had to relate this, so that's a country. Have a look at this diagram. What does personal financial management do? Well, if you know how to manage money, you're going to use it more successfully. Okay, so you're not going to be spending recklessly. You're not going to be buying the incorrect items. Okay, if you're going to be successful with your finance, what can you then do? You can then utilize your resources more productively. Okay, so if you've got a lot of savings, okay, the saving can be invested. By investing your savings, you're giving a business opportunities to, let's say, expand or grow. That's something to consider. Right, and then if businesses and other people are benefiting from your savings, that's going to increase your prosperity. Okay, so you're obviously going to get interest and dividends perhaps on your investments. So investments help you as the investor, and investments also help the individual or the business who's getting capital to help their business grow. Right, so everyone benefits if we've got good personal financial management. Okay, it's when we don't have this. Right, so what happens when people don't know how to manage money? They become reckless. Right, so now they take a lot of loans. If they take a lot of loans, they don't know how to manage money. Do you think they can pay back those loans? No. And if they can't pay back those loans, do you think the banks can recover those loans that they've given? Maybe through assets, but what happens if those individuals didn't buy assets? Because remember, they don't know how to manage money. So those individuals took out loans to go on holiday. Those individuals took out loans to pay for expenses, entertainment. All right. Can the bank take the holiday away after you've gone on holiday? No. Can the bank take back the food you've eaten after you've eaten it? No. All right. So when looking at personal financial management, those individuals aren't going to have the knowledge. So are the businesses going to get back their money? No. They're probably going to default on their loans. They're probably going to become blacklisted. Right. And it all starts with this. Education. It's because they didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to manage their money. Okay. All right, so here's a process. I want you to consider the management process in terms of planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. Okay, there are 4 important categories here when looking at management in terms of a process. Right, so when looking at planning, we always need to ask the question, what to do? Okay, so i.e., what tasks do I have to do? Okay, what, let's say, priorities do you have currently? Okay, organizing is the how. Right, so how do I do it? Okay, so the planning and the organizing, right, are separate because the one is more the goal, okay, and the organizing is the how to, i.e., the process to get to that goal. Right, so planning is what to do. So what do you want to do? Okay, if you do want to save, then you need to consider how am I going to save? Okay, so the goal, let's use the goal. The goal is to save. Okay, how do I save? I could use a bank account. I could use a savings account. I could use a fixed deposit. I could use a unit trust. I could use so many different financial products. Okay, then we need to look at this, leading and controlling. So now you know what the goal is. You know what you must do in terms of how to get it, okay, how to do it. Okay, you then need to look at this, leading. Right, so why don't people often achieve their goals?
Things change in their personal life.
Possibly. And also, in terms of how to keep moving forward. You need to keep moving forward in terms of progress. Okay, so step by step. Right, one step at a time. And eventually you'll get to that goal. Okay, so it's a process. Nothing gets achieved overnight. Okay, no successful person ever woke up successful. Right, it took years to generate that success. Okay, your Steve Jobs, your Bill Gates, your Warren Buffetts, okay, they all achieve success over a period of time. Okay, and then controlling is key. Right, if you're not monitoring what you're doing, so performance. Right, so you've done something. You've got a goal. You know how to achieve it, and you know that it's going to take steps. Okay, this is looking at the evaluation. Okay, or the check. Right, at some point in time, you need to check. Am I doing well? Okay, is this working? Yes or no? If it isn't, what must you do? You need to go back to the planning stage or back to the organizing stage. And you're going to have to change either how you do it or why you're doing it. Okay, or what you're doing, depending on the situation. Alright, so there's a process. Alright, so I want you to consider that family. How should this family, okay, plan, organize, lead, and control?
While they're young, they can plan ahead for the future of their retirement.
Okay, so what does planning involve? Setting a goal.
Setting a goal.
All right, so give me a goal. What goal should this family have? Anything. Give me an example of a goal that they would have.
Living a good life, they go retirement.
Retire.
That's not all I can think about.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, that's what they.
Okay,
That's what I think.
that's the goal. Great. Is that long term, short term, or medium term?
That's long term.
Correct. Good. Okay, so now you've got the planning in terms of we're planning to retire at a specific age. Okay. So now tell me about the organizing in terms of the how do we achieve this goal? How do we do it? How do we retire?
I'm putting money aside for the future.
Okay, so putting money aside, so that's saving, and that would be something maybe like a pension. Okay, the leading, the keep moving forward part. What must they do in terms of leading? Okay, if I'm looking at pension, maybe they set up a debit order, perhaps. Okay, to keep moving forward in terms of not having to remember to retire. So let's just put a debit order, it comes off every month, that's retirement sorted. Okay. The controlling is it working? Well,
They're reviewed over time.
correct. Okay, you need to review and you need to check what's your current value on your pension. Okay, is the pension invested in aggressive assets, assets that grow, or assets that don't? Okay, obviously you're investing for a longer period of time, so you've got more scope and you've got more time to invest.
But any other one you can think of pension? That's what I can think of.
Pension, retirement, you mean
For the previous slide.
for which one? Planning, leading, what?
Or anything else.
Oh, this one. Okay, so planning. In terms of a goal could be to send those two kids to private school rather than public school. That could be a goal that the family would have. Okay, so this family wants to send both of their kids to a private school. Right, that's the plan. The plan is to send them to private school. Right, their plan could be to renovate the house. That could be a plan. So let's make this a double story rather than a single story. Let's renovate this house and make it bigger. That could be a goal that they could have. That could be more medium term. So in 2 to 5 years, we want to renovate this house. Maybe something else, okay, could be we don't want a garden. I want to create a swimming pool. Right, I want this to be a swimming pool. That could be a plan. That could be the goal. Alright, so I'm just thinking creatively in terms of what they could have as a potential goal. Right, there could be other. Okay, you can be creative. Okay, it's just to test your analysis in terms of would you be able to give recommendations or would you be able to cover the steps in terms of getting to a specific point. Okay, so what is the goal? Retirement. How do we get there? Pension, retirement annuity. How do we do it? Maybe debit order, automatic withdrawal, etc. And then we grow our pension. Okay, make sure you review it and so on. Is that all right? Okay. All right. So when looking at chapter 1, the focus here is on needs versus wants. All right. So Maslow, okay, famous for identifying Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay, he basically analyzed individuals and he said, what are individuals' basic needs? What do people need? Well, people need physical needs in terms of food, water, and so on. Okay, that needs to be met. Once we're fed, okay, once we've got enough to drink and so on, then what do we focus on? We focus on security. Okay, so am I safe? Am I secure? Right, then after being safe and secure, so you've got the property, you're living safely, then people focus on friendship, okay, social needs, right, interaction, okay. After you've got a group of friends, friendship and so on, you then focus on ego. Alright, so now I've got all the friends, I've got all the people that know me, now I'm looking at the status of the ego. Okay, now I want status, I want that big title at the company, etc. Right, after you've achieved ego, the last step is self-actualization. Right, and this is the key in terms of happiness. Right, so as you continue going up the scale, okay, you increase your happiness in terms of meeting your needs. All right, so people have needs in terms of self-actualization. People want purpose. Okay, people live for a purpose. Okay, people live for like a dream. Okay, that's their purpose. Why are we put here? Okay, on this earth. What's our purpose? What are we meant to do? That type of thing. Okay, so people start with physical needs and they progress right towards higher levels of needs in terms of what they feel will provide themselves with happiness. Okay, what is a want though? A need and then versus a want. What is a want? Okay, yeah, well, we all need status in terms of ego. Okay, individuals, people have egos, people have what's the word? Pride and so on. Okay, and that's something that you need to obviously address. Okay, some people are more egotistical than others. Right, others aren't. Okay, it all depends on the person, but that's the level. So obviously, do you think, let's talk about someone less fortunate. If someone can't feed themselves, okay, and they're just looking for scraps just to be full, okay, that's a physical need, right? Do you think a physical need would be more important than an ego need? Does so, for example, okay, obviously in South Africa, we're living in a world where there's rich and there's poor. Right, so you've probably seen, let's say, beggars, the less fortunate around. Okay, so why does a beggar beg at a road, at the street, traffic lights?
Well, they're supposed to be hungry. They're normally hungry.
Correct. So do you agree their hunger is a more important need than their pride or their ego? Right, they don't care that they're standing at an intersection begging for something. Right, because for them, they don't care about their ego because they're just trying to meet their basic need of hunger. All right.
Yes.
Okay, and if they do meet that need in terms of hunger, then they can focus on other. Right, so someone who can afford to buy food, water, etc., are you going to see them standing at the traffic lights?
You can afford it.
Yes.
No, you won't.
You won't, because for them, they can achieve their basic need, so now they're higher up on the Maslow hierarchy of need. So those individuals aren't going to be, let's say, what's the right word? Impacting their ego, right? Because no one wants to stand at the traffic lights, all right? But you would stand at the traffic lights if you were hungry and starving and you didn't have anything to eat. Okay, so there's the difference between needs, okay, and then the wants. The wants would be, as you said, the luxuries, but not so much the ego, okay, because luxuries, we can get food that's very luxurious, inverted commas, okay, versus basic food, right? Okay, so bread and milk would be, let's say, your basic necessities, bread and milk, right? And then you get caviar and lobster and all of those fancy meals, okay? Is that a need or a want? The lobster, caviar would be the want. The need would be bread and milk, okay, or anything, fruit and vegetables. Okay, it doesn't have to be fancy. It's just something that satisfies your hunger. Okay, so that's the difference between need and want. The same thing goes for security and protection. Okay, you can have a need and you can want. Okay, so as long as you've got a roof over your head, you don't need 10 rooms, okay, in one household. Okay, if you're one individual, let's say. 1, 2, 3 rooms is more than enough for one person. Right, so need versus want. Or let's say mansion versus a house in the suburbs. Right, social needs, friendship. Okay, also need versus want. Okay, you could have one close friend in terms of friendship that meets the need of social need, okay, or you could have millions of friends, okay, on Facebook, but they're friends on Facebook, All right, rather than close friends that you interact with, example. Okay. Same thing with ego, in terms of a need versus want. Ego would be need. So, do you feel good about yourself? That's ego. Okay, you feeling good about yourself is ego. Okay, but now do you want other people to feel good about you, i.e. celebrity status? Okay, that's ego. Celebrities are looking at ego, feeding that ego in terms of other people viewing them as this idol. Okay. And then self-actualization, need versus want. Okay, it's difficult there to identify needs and wants because self-actualization is your purpose, right? And people should be living with purpose in terms of what are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to do? Okay. All right, there's the cycle. Are we all at the same point in time? No. Some people have jobs, some people are married, some people are buying their first house. Some people have kids. Some people are being promoted. Some people are still being educated. Some people are retiring. Okay, so all of those factors formulate this whole notion of financial planning. So is financial planning easy to do? No, because it's very, very individual, very specialized. So you need to look at the person. What life stage is the person in? Okay, is the person going to be changing job? Is the person going to be getting married? Is the person going to be buying a house? Is the person going to be having kids? Okay, the answers or the solutions that you would present to someone. Let's say, okay, so where would you put yourself here, Robert? Okay, good. So let's put yourself there, education. Right, and let's compare that to someone who's married, who has kids. Okay, are your needs the same as someone who's married and has kids? No, they're very different, right? Okay, for you, your education is key. Your studies are key. Right. For someone who's married and has kids, their priority would be the family. Right, making sure the family's looked after and taken care for. Right, rather than am I going to school, okay, to study further. But because their priorities are slightly different. Okay, so for you, you would be looking maybe more long-term in terms of saving. For the married couple, they're probably looking more short-term because things can happen. Okay, maybe they get divorced. Right, maybe the child's ill and they need to pay for certain expenses. Okay, so it all depends. But we're all at different points in time. All right, so here are a few of the different considerations. Okay, so when looking at financial planning, what must we look at? We need to look at this. Okay, considerations: age, gender, marital status, etc. There is a complete list on page 6 and 7 in the textbook. Okay, they give you a lot of different considerations. Okay, the most important one that we need to look at is probably what? Preference. Okay, so every individual, doesn't matter what age you are, doesn't matter what gender you are, doesn't matter if you're married or single, doesn't matter if you're Catholic, Christian, whatever, okay, you're going to have what? A preference in terms of your goals and your background. Okay, so when considering financial planning, yes, age, gender, marital status, religious orientation will affect your goals. Okay, it'll affect your preference, right? But we still need to determine what is the goal. Okay, what is the person trying to achieve? Okay, what does that person want to do? Right, and then having considered all of that, whether they're employed or not, whether they're high risk or low risk, whether they live a very extravagant lifestyle or a very simple lifestyle, whether they live high standard of living, low standard of living, whether they're single, married, divorced, etc. Doesn't matter. Okay, we're looking at factors that will contribute to their decision making. Right. So, how would a divorced person act? Okay, compared to a single person. Okay, or how would a widowed person, so someone who's lost a loved one, how would they act and what would they do? Okay, in a particular situation. Okay. Alright, and then the last bit for this particular study unit, chapter 1, focuses on this. Gathering information, which we spoke about. Do we need info? Of course we do. Right, and where do companies get information? Financial statements. Alright, so where can individuals get information? Same thing, financial statements. Right, so you could create a personal financial statement of your financial position. or your comprehensive income, okay, or even your cash flow. Okay, so individuals need to do the same thing. They need to identify objectives and needs, okay, because having identified the data in terms of information, they should be able to identify objectives and needs in terms of what they should do and what they need to do. Okay, objectives is our goals. What do we need to achieve? Okay, and then the needs, what must we do? Okay, what do we have to do? Okay, obviously you need to evaluate and you need to check it. You need to link, okay, those goals and needs and wants to time. Okay, so if you want a Ferrari, okay, when do you want the Ferrari? Next 5 years, next 10 years, tomorrow? Okay, that's linking objectives to time. Okay, listing priorities, same thing there. Right, what's more important? Is it more important to attend lectures, or is it more important to do the dishes at home, let's say? Okay, well, it depends. Yeah, priorities. Maybe not doing the dishes at home, okay, will create a problem in terms of not coming to lectures, maybe. I don't know. Okay, I'm just saying priorities are key. Okay, we need to prioritize. Okay, or is going to gym, okay, more important than sitting on the couch watching your favorite TV program? Okay, it's a priority. Is health more important than entertainment? We don't know. It depends on the person. Okay. Right, and then identifying constraints. Right, there'll always be certain limitations. Okay, there are only 24 hours in a day. Right, you can't gym and attend lectures. Okay, you can't gym and work. All right, you can maybe gym and listen to music. You can maybe gym and watch a TV program. Okay. Alright, so comparing the current situation to the required. Why do we compare where we are now to where we want to be?
Well, I'm starting to get a degree.
Okay, good. So it's the direction. Okay, so if we're here and we want to be there, okay, this is the action that needs to take place to get to where we want to be. Right, so we always need to look at the current situation. Maybe you're a bit further up the ladder in terms of progress. Maybe you're not here at the bottom. Maybe you're here somewhere in the middle. And that's where I want to go. That's also fine. But you need to know where you are currently. You need to know where are you now so that I can determine where do I want to go. What do I need to do to get to where I want to go? Okay. Right, and then I've given you a few notes here in terms of investment opportunities. We'll cover this later in a separate chapter. Developing a plan is key, right? Nothing gets achieved without a plan. Okay, you need to have a strategy, you need to have a game plan. Okay, it's like sports, right? Teams go into the match with a game plan, okay, with a strategy. Okay, budgets are key. We'll look at budgeting also a bit later. Maybe just to describe what it is. What is a budget?
Budget, budget is not you prepare not expensive. You plan that's how much you spend and you try to spend under or over.
Correct, good. Okay, so looking at your income, comparing it to your expenses, making sure you've budgeted X for each of those expenses perhaps. Okay, did I spend over or under? Good. Right, and then obviously we need to implement and revise the plan. Is the plan working? Right, then I've given you some advantages here in terms of personal finance. We know knowledge is power, that's key. Okay. Important to always improve yourself, and with finance, the more we know, the better we can, the better decisions we can make. Okay, that can help us with achieving that goal of financial independence. Okay, needs, we need to know what our needs are. Okay, so everyone has different needs, right? Okay, those needs need to be identified because those needs will determine how you behave. Okay, so if your need is to be fed, okay, you're going to go find food. Okay, you're going to go to the fast food outlet. You're going to go to the restaurant. You're going to go to the stores. Okay, if that's the need. Okay, identifying risks. What is a risk? What is a risk?
Risk investments.
Yeah. What is risk? What is risk? Do we know what's going to happen?
No, so that's risk. Yeah.
Correct, that's risk. Risk is not knowing what's going to happen. Risk is the uncertainty. Okay, so let's say I'm hungry. Okay, and it's 2 a.m. in the morning. Right? You've gone out, you're hungry at 2 a.m. in the morning. Okay, can you go to the restaurant?
No.
Well, maybe some, perhaps. Maybe fast food, so petrol station. So there's the risk, the uncertainty. Which stores open 24 hours a day? Yes, okay, generally, correct. Alright, so the risk is I go to a retailer, supermarket. Right, the risk is they're not going to be open. There's uncertainty. Not to say they can't open. Maybe certain retailers do open. Okay, you normally find those convenience stores at those petrol garages, yeah. Okay. All right, what else do we need to look at in terms of advantages? Cash flow. We know cash flow is key because inflows need to exceed outflows. That's important. If our inflows are more than our outflows, we're not going to go bankrupt. Okay, and then budgeting we spoke about, and providing for retirement. Those are some advantages when it comes to personal financial planning. Having a plan, having a goal. Right, and then I've given you a note here. All of these are separate chapters in your book. Alright, so career planning I think is the next one, or the one just after. Okay, then we've got project, family, income, estate, investment. All of these areas are part of the plan. Okay, financial planning. Right, so we need to know how to determine which of those areas are more important. So if health is important, do you agree? Someone who cares about their health is going to be making slightly different decisions to someone who doesn't care as much about their health.
Yeah.
Okay. Or maybe someone else might be focusing more on retirement. Someone who's focusing more on retirement would be acting differently to someone focusing more on healthcare. Okay, it all depends on the type of person. Or someone who's looking to immigrate would have different decisions versus someone who's looking to stay. Right. And that covers the first chapter.